This episode is with somebody
You guys want to a little bit different.
Imagine how lonely, imagine how freaked out, let's just use the right word. Imagine how terrified you would be if you've been arrested in a foreign country and a language that you don't speak for an attempt to assassinate the president, which you had no part in. And now you found yourself in a prison and you have no idea when or if you'll ever be released. That's where our guest, Daniel Corbett, found himself, as he was a prisoner in a Serbian prison while serving as a military contractor overseas. And I want you to hear from his own words what this was like waiting for the unknown while he spent 18 months in a Serbian prison. This is my guest, Daniel Corbett, on this episode of Unbeatable.
These stories of triumph over adversity will help you handle your toughest days in life and become unbeatable.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for being a guest on this episode of Unbeatable, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, there's a lot about your story that I want to unpack. In fact, you and I, no doubt, spent some time together overseas. But I really want to know, I'm dying to know, what is a Navy SEAL doing inside a Serbian prison? That's really the question that I want to answer today.
Yeah, the first thing you have to do is separate those two things, because I wasn't there in a Navy SEAL capacity. I just happened to be a reservist that was in a Serbian prison.
Yeah, and anybody who's sitting there saying, life in a Serbian prison, I can't wait to find out what this sounds like or what life is like inside a Serbian prison. But we're going to work our way there, man. And I want people to hear about your background. Every time I have a guest on the show or even a family on the show that's connected to the military, man, I always say, thank you, dude, for serving the country. Thanks for protecting my freedom.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Okay, so it's 2002. You're sitting around just about ready to finish high school. Why the Navy SEALs?
That started actually in 2001. I was running cross country as a junior in high school. And one of the assistant coaches said, "What are you doing at high school?" And at that time, I didn't think life existed beyond high school. I was just young and living my life. I said, "Man, I don't know." And he brought the DHS history tape.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Navy SEAL training with a cool voiceover.
He just said VHS for anybody who missed that, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I watched it probably 10 times in one weekend. There was a scene in there where they interview one of the SEALs and you say, "Hey, how are you guys so good?" And he just replied, "It's not that we're that good, we're just better than everyone else. Or everyone else just sucks." And I was like, man, that's cool. Like, I want to do this.
Okay, so tell everybody, I know a lot about SEAL training, but there's a lot of people listening from around the world that are familiar with the phrase Navy SEALs, don't really know what you guys did, but also have no concept of what it takes to go from senior in high school, just graduated, to becoming a part of the SEAL teams. So can you give them what that pipeline looks like?
Yeah, for sure. First off is, you have to join the Navy. And when I was going through, you had to pick an A school, which is a regular Navy job. You had to go to that school first immediately after boot camp because the attrition rate's so high. To mitigate guys being in the military for a year plus and then not making it and not having a job. And it really screws up their career. So they said, okay, you have to pick a regular school. And I picked a regular school, got my contract squared away, and then in boot camp, you can take, it's like the SEAL PRT challenge test, where you do the physical screener. Once you do that, okay, that's your first wicket. And then you just finish boot camp, go to your A school. I picked the shortest one I could find, which is 4 weeks as a parachute rigger in Pensacola, Florida. And then checked into BUDS right after that.
Okay.
Go into BUDS, take a screener again, and then you get started.
Yeah, BUDS, we'll get into BUDS in just a second, but I want to make sure that people didn't miss what you said. back in those days, you had to choose a regular job in the Navy before you could apply to be a SEAL. In fact, if I heard you correctly, you had to train in a regular job. And I already know why. You already mentioned why, but I don't want people to miss this reason. What were the washout rates? What did the attrition rate look like back in those
For
days?
buds,
For the whole program, but for buds especially.
I think it felt pretty consistent from 85 to 88%.
Yeah.
Not quite sure, but I think it hasn't changed since then.
12 or 15 out of 100 are going to make it through. And the U.S. Navy, being wise, said, well, we're not going to let anybody, we're going to give the other 85, 88% an employable job after they wash out. So makes sense that they would ask you to go do a different job before you even tried buds. What is buds? Just explain the acronym first, and then tell everybody what buds training is like.
Well, it's just basic federal water demolition school, and it's really a screening process for the first phase of it, and then you start to go into skill sets. And what I mean by that first phase, as soon as you get there, it is you're getting yelled at, you're getting impossible situations. You can have your room spotless, you're still going to fail the room inspection. They want to see how you react in those no-win situations. You're gonna be like, "Oh, that's not fair. I cleaned it all night." Or you're like, "Oh, whatever. Let's go. Let's roll. What's next?" So the first 2 months is when you're gonna have your infamous L week, and that's gonna get ready. And the way they structure it makes sense. They're not gonna spend the time and money in teaching you skills before an event like that because they didn't know if you're gonna make it through Hell week. So they get that out of the way pretty quickly. And then after Hell week, every day is still a selection process. Every single day you're being evaluated. But then you start learning diving. And then when you get to third phase, you have some diving, it's another 2 months. And then after that, you have another 2 months, which is third phase, which is going to be more tactics and land warfare. And that's the first time. And you've been in this pipeline over 4 months, month 5 and 6. Is when you start kind of feeling like a commando. You get your little gear with your canteen holder, your magazines, and really basic maneuvers, but it's cool. It's the first time you're like touching a weapon through the entire process, and you start to really feel like, oh, I'm going to be a commando.
I love your language. You get a chance to feel like a commando. 4 months of, I haven't even touched a weapon yet, but 4 months of every day, really all day long, you're being evaluated, you're being assessed, and you can be dropped at any point, or you can, decide that it's too much and drop out of it at any point before you even get to the first time that you put your kit on and touch a weapon.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Lots of people out there, even the international audience that's listening, has heard the phrase Hell Week. Maybe they've even seen a movie or two that's tried to replicate Hell Week. And I'm not going to ask you to go into the details of, from the first formation to the end of Hell Week, but I do want you to describe what Hell Week is, because you've already mentioned it as the thing that really helps us eliminate some people that don't need to be going through the training in the first place.
It's its own very unique thing. You start on a Sunday, you're on the beach in a little tent, or a big tent, and the nerves are just killing you because you're waiting. You don't know when it's going to happen. The sun goes down, and you're supposed to be trying to sleep, but you're just sitting there rigid.
Yeah,
caught,
you're waiting for the inevitable.
And you hear people walking around the tent, like, "Oh, this is gonna be it." So your heart rate's going up and going back down, and then all of a sudden you just hear the blank fire of machine guns, and then smoke grenades. Like, everybody get out, and then it's just chaos. The first still breakout. I don't know. The first 2 to 4 hours, it's just madness. In the water, get a head kennel, smoke everywhere. Doing workouts on the grinder, running back out to the beach. Yeah, it's complete chaos.
Organized chaos on the instructor's end, but for you,
Yes.
It doesn't even look organized, right?
No.
Yeah, and Hell Week serves a pretty important purpose. It's not designed to torture you as much as it is to just put you in a very uncomfortable situation where you don't know when it's going to end, you don't know what's going to happen next. And really, the value of explain to everybody what the value of the training at Hell Week is for, the guy that's just getting started in buds.
It's to prove to yourself and the instructors that you're going to keep going no matter what. And it's easy to sit there and say that and have a conversation with the guy in a bar who's like, "Oh, I'm so tough, I'll never quit. The only way I'm leaving Buzz is a body bag." And those guys are out there.
Those guys are the ones that ring the bell and they're on their way out the door.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay, do you believe this? Now show us. And it's just an opportunity to show that you're supposed to be there.
Yeah. And honestly, for everybody who's listening, this podcast is called Unbeatable because it's basically saying things are going to happen to you in life. Things that you don't like, they're not pleasant experiences. You're going to get punched in the face or kicked in the stomach by life. And when that happens, you have to decide, am I going to adjust? Am I going to adapt? Am I going to be willing to get up and to keep going or not? And I've had lots of friends that have gone through SEAL training, gone through buds, and it's basically the same thing for everybody. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter how strong you are. At some point, the will is going to be confronted with the circumstances of buds. And I already know the answer to this, but I want you to explain this to the listeners. Really, buds is not testing you to see how fast you can run or how much you can bench press. What is the real test of buds, or really Hell Week in general?
So it's kind of multifaceted because it does pay to be a winner, right? So if you win your races, you get rewarded. But they want to see if you're going to quit. They want to see, for example, we were doing a shuttle run, like 400-meter ladder run, and I was coming in second place every time. And the guy who's coming first was a professional triathlete, and we'd be like, neck and neck, and then he would look over and see me pull away, then he'd just trot a little bit faster and he would win. And the instructors actually secured me because I'm like throwing up after each one. And this guy's not even trying hard. So they want to see that max effort. They want to see you go the distance. They don't care if you're a professional triathlete. They want to see you give, just because you win. Okay, if you won and you weren't giving all you have, that's not a victory to them. So they really put like, oh, that guy's killing himself trying to win. I would like that guy on my team more than the guy who's just a little bit faster and he's not even trying.
Yeah.
Right?
I hope people heard what you just had to say. This is unusual in, a capitalist society. Everybody cares who's the first one. Everybody wants to know who's fastest. Everybody wants to know who's on top. But Buds and Hell Week is not really asking the question, who's the fastest? Buds is asking the question, who's willing to push themselves the farthest? And sometimes the guy who's not the fastest is willing to push themselves furthest, and you're going through a level of pain that the dude who's just naturally faster than you is not going through, and you're showing something to the Buds cadre that the professional triathlete is not showing them. I got a great story for you, man. You'll love this. When I was going through training for the Ranger Regiment, when I was going through their assessment and selection process, like you, I was the second fastest guy out there. And no matter how hard I tried, I just could not beat this other dude. He always ended up finishing, and he usually ended up finishing like 3 to 5 seconds in front of me on the running events that we did. It drove me absolutely nuts. I don't think I ever saw this guy again, although he made it through the program and went and served successfully in the Ranger Regiment, but I'll never forget his name. His name is Massengil. And Massengil, if you're watching this episode right now, I'm still having trouble getting over the fact that you beat me on every single running event. But Daniel, you'll love this. Not only did Massengil beat me, but he was a cook and I'm the infantry guy who's going through the program, and there's a cook who's beating me. And no matter how much I tried, if I'm puking my guts out at the end, Massengale still beats me by 3 or 5 seconds. And it wasn't so bad just being beat. It was being beat by a guy who was a cook
By a
that
cook.
really, really was hard. That was a hard pill for me to swallow, man.
Oof.
So Massengale, if you're watching this episode, man, I chased you as hard as I could and never was able to catch up to you. And I'm not completely over it now, 25 years later, or 35 years later, I mean.
Yes.
Okay, so you make it through the program, and I know how this works because of my time in JSOC, but would you describe life on a team? Okay, so now that you've made it through the program, you've already finished, the BUDS program, and you're wearing the SEAL Trident. You get assigned to a team, and those teams are kind of spread across the United States. We're not going to violate any operational security right now, but would you describe a little bit about life on a SEAL team? Because there's probably some dudes watching this right now that are trying to figure out, do I want to be a SEAL when I finish high school?
Yeah. This answer will be time stamped because cultures change, leadership
Sure.
changes, and not each SEAL team is alike. Not even each platoon within the SEAL team is alike, right? They all have their own cultures and countercultures and subcultures. When I checked into the SEAL team, it was when there was only 2 new guys or 3 new guys checking into a platoon, and it's what you would think. Keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, take the trash out, and learn.
And try not to do
It's-
anything stupid to draw unnecessary
Exactly.
attention, because there's already going to be plenty of attention on you.
Oh yeah. So when you get there, a lot of attention on you. You're trying your best to be the best looking guy. And my platoon at SEAL Team 5 was routing. Like they were like some hard charging guys, but like tactically awesome. So I had a blast at that my first platoon. Dang. What's unique, I feel is unique to the SEAL teams. I don't know how many other units do you work at, but I don't think you're as cyclic as we are. So when you check into your platoon, they first send you away to go to schools. A lot of time for individuals to go, hey, go learn this field, go learn that skill. Then when everyone comes back from that, they have another big chunk of time where you do a workup and you do all of loss, room clearing, urban warfare, diving, shipboarding, land warfare, and then after that you deploy. Then when you come back, you do the same thing. So you have that cyclical training where you stay current on everything.
Yeah. And there's a lot, because you just described it as a lot of guys going away for individual training. You're getting some skills while you're gone away, but you also have to be able to develop some skills as a team. So then you come back and you start integrating back into the team again and spinning up for the next rotation. You joined the SEALs after the attacks on September 11th, which means you joined the military when the military was already at war. Which made the training and the preparation cycles even more intense. How long were you in SEAL Team 5 before your first deployment?
Well, I technically delayed entry programmed as a junior in high school. So I was like committed, and then 9/11 happened, and then I
Oh,
went.
so you had already signed up before 9/11. Yeah.
Delayed entry because I wanted an insurance policy on myself not to goof off and stick around and do a senior trip to Cabo and get in trouble.
Yeah.
Nope. Gradually leave. So, yeah, I don't think I would have taken training any less seriously, but it did hit home when we were going through training as a student, and on more than one occasion, older SEAL would be like, "You guys don't know how lucky you have it." What do you mean? It's like, I've been a SEAL for 18 years. I've been East Coast, West Coast, back to the East Coast, and I've tried to do the onesies and twosies little missions that actually happen during the pre-GWAT time. Is like I've been chasing it, never got it. You guys are going to graduate and go straight to the show. You don't know how lucky you have it. And I didn't. I didn't. I appreciate it now. But I think my first deployment, well, still till 5, it was the summer of 05 to Iraq.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you had been
so
in the Navy for how long by then?
2002 to 2005.
Okay.
And that's straight through. That's like the
Yeah,
shortest
right.
pipeline, too. Yeah.
I joined the Army way before you. Went straight to the Ranger Regiment in the late 1980s. And when I went to the Ranger Regiment, almost nobody had been in combat. There was a couple of guys from Vietnam. There was one or two of those Rangers that took part in the invasion of Grenada. And those guys were using language with me like, if you ever go to war in your entire career, you could spend 20 years in the Ranger Regiment and probably never go to war. If you ever go to war, Jeff, this is what it's going to be like. And I drank it up. I tried to, get as much information from these guys as possible. I've said to some new leaders in the military today, that language changed fundamentally like October of 2001. And nobody used the language, if you go to war. From that point forward, it became when you go to war. And that was a radical shift that I don't think most people understood. Stayed like that for about 20 years. And now we're back in the if you go to war phase of the US military. But I try to remind warriors it's inevitable. It will happen again. And nobody knows when, nobody knows where, nobody knows how big or how bloody, but it's going to happen again. It just may not be 20 years of persistent conflict like you experienced over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Took you 3 years just to get through kind of the basic minimal training that you need to go to your first combat deployment. And your first deployment was 05 and it was in Iraq. Is that right?
Correct. Your summer of 05, Baghdad, Ramadi, and Hamiyat.
Okay. How many times did you end up deploying in your career as a Navy SEAL?
4 actual deployments.
Okay. Yeah, Daniel, you might not, whether you know this or not, chances are you and I were in Ramadi at the same time, in Bayap at the same time.
Oh, wow.
I was serving with the Ranger Regiment from from the beginning of GWAT all the way until the time that I retired, 2010, 2011. So I did lots and lots of deployments, of course, with Team 6, but I also hit a target or two with, Team 5. So who knows, maybe you and I were on the same target at the same time in Ramadi, 2005. Who knows?
That's awesome.
Yeah. There's a natural progression if you can survive the lifestyle. But I already know this. I'd like for you to make sure that you explain to the audience just how brutal, how hard this lifestyle is on a body, because most people can't handle the life of a commando for 8, 10, 20 years. But the guys that are able to stick with it, there's a little bit of a progression in the Navy Special Warfare Command. Would you describe first how challenging this lifestyle is physically?
Yes. Caveat. I was very young when I joined, which did wonders.
Yeah, because you could take some abuse and bounce right back from it, right?
Exactly. I'm going through bus with guys who played like D1 college football, and they're icing their knees and popping Motrin, and I'm 18, like, what's big? Whatever. And they're like, So I got pretty lucky, and I know guys who joined that were young too. They've had like double shoulder knee surgeries. I got very lucky with wear and tear. But yeah, I've seen guys from 25 with double shoulder surgeries, back, especially the guys who are slick on boats, they get torn up. So it is demanding, and people have passed in training. Yeah, it's you gotta give everything you got. Like all it takes is everything you got, right?
That's right.
So I got But I got very lucky, and all my injuries happened post.
Yeah.
All my base injuries happened post baby.
Well, like you, I know guys that are 31 years old that are on their seventh knee surgery, and all of
Yeah,
it, is work related, and or they've got, a broken neck, broken back, dislocated, right shoulder, and all of it's work related, and they patch them back up and try to throw them back in there. But man, it is a brutal business. The life of a special operator in the United States military. Um, let's talk now transitioning to Team Six. And obviously, I don't want to spill any secrets. I don't want to violate any non disclosure agreements. But you spent some time on Team Six, and it is fundamentally different than the other SEAL teams. As much as you're able to, can you describe a little bit about what's different and also about the process to become part of Team Six?
yeah, 100%. What's different is there's no new guys fresh out of training. You have to have been on a SEAL team for X amount of time to even get invited slash approved by your master chief to go try out. With that being said, the screening process there is really pushing the envelope on tactics and speed, everything warfare involved. And if you make a Monday mistake on Monday, we'll write it down, but you're good. But if you make a Monday mistake on Tuesday, you're gone. Because it's not like the regular SEAL teams where we have to wait and train up all the new guys. It's like we're gonna go at this speed, and whoever can hang on hangs on, and they progress, and the other guys will go back. We're not gonna stop the train for you. We can slow it down. That's the biggest difference.
I love that description. I don't think I've ever heard anybody use it before. It's okay to make a Monday mistake on Monday because it's Monday and that's when you make Monday mistakes, but you better learn from your mistake. You better make sure that you fix that mistake and don't make a Monday mistake on Tuesday because this train ain't slowing down or stopping for anybody. And if you make a Monday mistake on Tuesday, I guess you're not what we're looking for.
Yeah, and you can't because you're learning Tuesday skills, and on Wednesday you have to know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday skills. It just compounds. So you can't stop. You're always going to be a step behind.
And I don't, I know this lifestyle, you know this lifestyle, but for the listener out there, you might be thinking, okay, that just seems almost inhuman. How does somebody keep up with that kind of pace? And the truth is, not a lot of people can. But I also know this SEAL Team 6 can do some things for the nation that no other unit can do in any branch of the U.S. military. In order to be able to have a unit that can do those things, you have to have a standard that's high, that is that high. You have to have people that are that skilled. And if you slow the train down, or if you make room for somebody who just doesn't have the skills, then the unit can't do what the nation needs them to do at some point in the future. So it is a relentless pace and a difficult lifestyle to be serving in that unit.
Yeah, it's constant scrutiny, always pushing the envelope. What can we do better? What can I do better? And it's nonstop.
Yeah, and it's not for the sake of arrogance. It's not, to prove that you really are the best. It's because when the nation needs something of you, you can deliver it and nobody else can. And if you can't deliver it, no one can deliver it. So we better make sure we've got the unit that can deliver what the nation needs when they need us to deliver it, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Let's get towards the end of your Navy career because really what I want to get to is becoming an American mercenary and what you do next. But how long total did you serve in the Navy before you ended up leaving? Because after SEAL Team 6, you went and did some training, right? And then how
Yeah,
much time did you serve total in the Navy?
I think I left active duty in 2012, so I did 10 years active, and I went and tried my hand at contracting, writing cargo ships as they went through the Suez Canal and escorted them through the pirate-infested waters. Even though I saw pirates, uh, it was very lonely, and I wasn't really having the best time. And that's when I was like, man, I don't want to come crawling back with my tail between my legs, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So I called up the reserve SEAL team in San Diego, SEAL Team 17. what do you guys think? Come on over. So I tried my hand for contracting for about a year and then went straight back to the reserves at that time.
You were contracting at a time that people were offering commandos insane amounts of money. Actually, there's still an insane amount of money available for some guys that
Oh,
have
yeah.
your skill set out there. And it's really hard for a family that's young and struggling to pay the bills to turn down the kind of paychecks. I know what those paychecks look like because I got those offers, but man, it's really hard to turn down. I'll just use these numbers: 10 times, 20 times your annual salary in the US military to go do a 5-month, 6-month gig overseas. It's really hard to turn those kind of numbers down when your family's young and growing and you're struggling to pay the bills.
Matt, it's good and bad, and you have to be very careful because if you just go straight into that, you're delaying the mental process of transition because you're still kind of doing the same thing, still kind of the same lifestyle, right? So as long as you know that going in that you're kind of getting to this arrested development phase that like your transitioning is actually going to be on hold and you're still going to have to swallow that pill when you're done with
Yeah,
that, and go do that and make the money.
because the money is insane. You did it for a year and then you said, hey, I think I want to go back to the reserves. Now, life in SEAL Team 17 is very different than an active SEAL team, especially Team 6. So, what did you do on SEAL Team 17?
I got really lucky. A Mustang prior chief I knew was a new ensign, and he goes, "Hey, I know you have up to like 5 years before you have to mobilize and deploy, but like I'm trying to stack a team. Do you want to mobilize like early?" So I said, "Yes, let's do it."
So,
So
you deployed with Team 17.
yeah,
Nice.
we did a we did a little workup and deployed. So I was pretty active as soon as I checked into SEAL Team 17.
Yeah. And how long did you do that before you separated from the Navy?
I was separated from the Navy in 2019
Okay.
while I was overseas.
All right. Now let's transition. Let's go to Serbia. How do you end up in Serbia before we get to how do you end up in a Serbian jail and end up making international news in a
Yeah.
Serbian jail? So what led you to Serbia?
So it was on a job, a light job, just see if someone's a turd or not. Take pictures of him doing stuff he's not supposed to. Wrong place, wrong time. I was at a kid's house who he had gotten arrested out in another town. Cops brought him back to his house to search his house, and there's an American there. And when they saw an American there and they heard me speaking English, all kinds of alarms went off in their head. They said, "Why are you here? Where's your passport? Here it is." And you're all like, there's not a translator there, so I'm just like, this is a mess. I didn't do anything. You go to jail. I'm fine. Go to jail, get interrogated. Long story short, over 4 days of interrogation, we'll come on a pig cop. There's a pig cop there, and he's like, "Are you CIA?" I said, "No." "Are you DEA?" "No." "What are you for?" I said, "I'm a private military contractor." Because what allows you to do that? What's your background? So I was an assistant. Oh, special forces. I think there were special forces when you guys were fighting Kosovo. Like little jabs at me, and I'm like, ugh. This little more interrogation was on, and then they're like, "You're here to kill the president."
To
I said,
kill
"What?"
the president? They thought you were there to assassinate the
Yeah.
president.
I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yo, 100%." I'm like, "Okay, for one, I'm not. Two, if someone were to do something like that, you wouldn't fly into
That's
the
right. You
country.
wouldn't
You
just see
weren't
me
here.
hanging
True
right.
now. Is
That's
that
right.
how you do it?
Newsflash, the guy who goes in to kill the president does not do it the way that I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, I said, "Okay." Good cop comes back in the room. He's like, "Look, dude, I believe you. I believe you. Cross face, both time. Occam's razor, the most simplest explanation.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's not sexy. It won't get printed. But what did get printed was that you already told the president. The press already has your newspaper. It's already gone out.
Oh, man.
This has already been leaked out.
Yeah.
So you're famous and you're screwed." I said, "Oh, great." Then you go to the courthouse, make initial statements. The judge says, I don't know what's going on, but you're an ex-SEAL. You've seen the newspapers.
Yeah.
You go into jail until you figure it out.
Oh my good. You're an ex-SEAL, and the newspapers say you're here to kill the president, so that must be what's about to happen.
But yeah. And so it's just unrolling. I'm like, what's going on? Like, who do I trust? Finally got a lawyer in the hallway of a courthouse, like really haphazardly before he made her statements, and I went to jail. Put me in a horrible room for 3 days for observation, make sure you're not crazy. And then they put me into a special room with a guy who murdered his wife with a hammer while she was trail running, a Croatian terrorist, and a guy who specializes in kidnapping and ransom. And because I was in like the special room, we only had 30 minutes a day on our walk outside. And it was only with us. And there was no chow hall. They just would push a little cart and then your bowl and your spoon, and that's it. So I was in my room for 23 and a half hours a day. 10 by 20.
With these three other convicts. Okay, how long were you in this prison?
18 months.
Yeah. Now, I want to make sure that I describe, well, actually, I'm going to let you describe this to the audience. It's one thing to go overseas as part of the United States military and you have, some backing behind you. It's another thing to go overseas, doesn't matter where you're at, as a private military contractor. Yes, you have a company that employs you, but there's a world of difference. If you get into a bad situation, like thrown into a Serbian jail, what would happen to, let's say, an active duty or a Navy SEAL who's still, in the U.S. military versus a private contractor? Really quickly, can you describe the differences if you were still, part of the U.S. military on this operation versus a military contractor? And I say this because there's lots of guys out there who are in the military who are being offered a big chunk of money and they haven't thought through what you have at your disposal and what you don't have at your disposal after you leave the military.
I mean, there's no bailout plan, there's no QRF, there's no Black Ops, there's no ISR platforms. It's just you, like when you're out doing stuff, and then no one's accountable for you. Like you're on your own. They don't care. You're not representing them, the U.S. or their mission, so we're not going to help you. Now, I say that, and very bitterly, I say that there's currently active duty guys in prison overseas,
right.
and they're still there.
Yeah.
So I don't know how different that is.
Yeah, but once you're part of the U.S. military, it now becomes an official representative of the U.S. government that's in jail. And now the U.S. government has whether they like it or not, has a responsibility to try to figure out why are you in jail and what are we going to do to get him out of jail. Even if you committed the most heinous crimes, you're still a member of the U.S. military and as a result, a representative of the U.S. government. And I don't think some of my buddies who left and went to do private contracting understood what was no longer going to be behind them if they ever got themselves thrown into a Serbian jail. During those 18 months, what was happening behind the scenes to get you released?
Nothing. I stood trial. I stood trial in Serbian court.
There was no attempt to negotiate between governments. There was not NGOs that were out there advocating on your behalf, anything like that? Okay, so how did you get released? Why did you get released?
I got released because justice prevailed. I mean, they held me for 11 months without officially charging me, even though they have 6 months to charge. All right, but it's Serbia, so hey, it's Serbia. Is this like, hey, the common phrase was, hey, this is Serbia. Okay, fine, whatever that means. After 11 months, I was charged. It took an entire month to get a judge. And in Serbia, there's no jury. It's just a judge who makes a decision. No judge wanted to take my case because
Because
their
it's too
minister
political, or I mean, it's too
is
high
too
profile, right?
political,
Everybody
it's too
knows your
high
picture.
profile. Yeah, but there's no evidence. So do you diss off the government and uphold justice,
Right.
or do
Yeah.
you go back on your vows of being, justice is blind to appease the
I
government?
was just
And
thinking that if I'm a Serbian judge and you are the guy who's about to come before my courtroom, no matter what I do next, it's not going to be pretty, because
100%.
if I let you go, I'm going to be the guy who let the dude on the front page of the newspaper go that everybody thinks is guilty. If I throw you in jail, I don't have the evidence. I don't have the authority, but man, for the judge, for you, it's a no-win situation. For the judge, it's a no-win
100%. Yeah,
situation.
but after 11 months of waiting, you're like, just sentence me, send me to
Let's
prison
just
where I
make
can
this
be out.
permanent, right?
Can we just go? Can we just continue? Because sitting and waiting in the
It's
doldrums,
the worst.
doing nothing,
Yeah.
it's no, it's fine. Send me to wherever for 12 years or release me. I have to do something, right? Just set up. So she was like, yeah, I'm taking the case. And the way court works in Serbia, because you're so backed up, is in January we go in and opening statements. They're so backed up that each phase of a trial is one day. Right? Opening statements is 1 day. Examination, cross-examination. But these days are scheduled 30 days apart. They come in 1 month increments because they're so backed up. I thought we were going to start trial 2 weeks. We're out of here. And the trial itself took 6 months from start to finish.
So now you're over the 12-month mark in jail, and you are still in trial, right?
100%. And sometimes, one time, I don't remember if it's the second or third date, drive from the prison to the courthouse, go into the courtroom, everyone sits down, and spend 5 minutes, bunch of Serbian language, the judge gavels out, and I was like, what's going on? It's like, oh, the interpreter didn't show up. This will be next month. It's like, oh man, like the let to the highs and lows.
Yeah.
Because at prison, you have nothing to look forward to. So your court date is like, I have a thing to look forward to. And you go there, like, yes, okay.
At the end of the trial, what was the decision? Why did the judge decide to release you?
The very last day, of course, they gave me the worst translator I had through the entire ordeal. The judge calls up the 3 other guys that happen to be in my case, reads what they're guilty of, sentences them, and then I stand up and she reads everything to me, and my translator says, you can go. I said, under what terms? Because I was convinced the political move the judge was going to make was say you're guilty, but time served, you can go home. Right? So, hey, everybody wins. I make them happy, you go home. She said, I'm so sorry for what we went through. You're innocent of all charges. No evidence against you. These guys all said they were guilty of what the crime was, and felt, I hope this doesn't put a bad taste in your mouth about Serbia.
Yeah. Come back and visit lovely Serbia sometime again.
Exactly. I said, okay. And, there wasn't this big, jubilation going on, yay. It was like, yeah, no shit. About time. It took us 18 months to do this? Come on.
Yeah. Being declared, I've never had this moment, but I'm trying to imagine what this was like when the translator finally muttered in broken English, you're free, you can go home. And you learn that the judges declared you innocent, not just you don't have to go back to prison, but you were actually innocent. And we recognize that you were innocent of all charges. I don't know if you are even able to, but can you describe what that feeling must have been like when you finally got the notice?
I mean, it was a little bit unbelievable at first. I was practicing for 12 years at this other prison. But then when it hit me, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't that happy. I was most frustrated that it took this long. Should have taken this long. So I was happy, but that happiness was kind of marred by this sense of how ridiculous this whole ordeal has been.
Yeah, I hope people are listening right now, and I hope that they're imagining the sense of helplessness. Right, I'm in a foreign country with a language that I don't even speak, being accused of trying to assassinate the president, and I have nothing backing me up. I don't have my government, coming in behind me to rescue me. I'm all alone in this, Serbian prison until the justice finally does prevail. And by the way, let's just be honest, in some places it wouldn't prevail, but in your case it did. And you're released and declared innocent of all charges. Man, what a crazy emotional roller coaster that would have been for 18, 20 months.
Yeah, it was, man, it was pretty wild.
What happens to you after you're released? How do you end up doing what you're doing now?
Get released, come home, realized I had been separated from active reserves because my AOS had kept going. Hey, we kept extending you.
Yeah.
My honorable discharge, RA1, 5. And not 30 days after being home, I took another job. So to another country. And people were like, how could you go and do that after what happened? I said, hey, Cowboy gets fucked out his horse. He's a sufferer.
That's right.
Gets back on and he's better and you learn what he did wrong, there.
You get back on the horse. Yep.
Exactly. So went away for 3 months, came back, and a book agent called me. He says, hey, do you want to do the book? I said, no, because I knew that once I went that course, what I was doing through work was going to be unnecessarily difficult or not doable at all. I said that, no. And this world of like very bespo onesies and twosies contracting, you'll get like 4 phone calls in 2 years, and maybe one of them comes to fruition with like everything's kosher legally, the money's there, blah blah blah. So kept waiting, kept holding my breath, nothing was coming out. And then there was an incident with some guys in Venezuela, I think, and that went crazy in the news, and everyone kind of like really started getting away from private stuff. And then I got a phone call again and said, hey, I really think you should do a book. And I said, okay, fine, let's do it. Let's do it. But I don't want to do a seal book. I want to do after. What are you guys doing? What did I do after? Because yeah, I went to buds and do all the things I did, but it's not very proprietary to me because a lot of other guys have to. Right? I'm sure they've told their stories better than I have, but I wanted to do something that was a little bit different and go into something I can be proud of and stand behind. I did this. Yeah, that's how I started.
That's where the book American Mercenary comes from. When was the book released?
It will be released August 20th.
Oh, okay. August 20th.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, you just mentioned this incident in Venezuela, and by the way, you may not be aware of this. I had one of those guys on the show several months ago, the Citgo Six, these 6 business leaders that were arrested for something very similar and ended up spending years in a prison. But they described this mountain of people and organizations behind them that it took just to get them released. And holy smokes, man, it was rough for them. So no wonder why a publishing company's calling you and saying, hey, Daniel, you really got to get this thing in a book. And you're right, lots of commandos go out and take their skill set and transition into private military contracting. But I don't know any of them that have written books about the second phase of their, military or their career. Most of them all talk about, the stuff that everybody watches in the movies.
Yeah.
There's definitely some people that are watching and listening to this episode that want to get a copy of American Mercenary. So when it drops, how do they find it?
You can find it on the Hachette Book Group landing page, or you can find it on Amazon, Articles, Target, Walmart, and Books and Then.
All right. So it's going to go out there all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. because this thing is dropping in August, we're going to remind our audience about it. In fact, if it's coming out digitally, I may even get a copy and give it away free to somebody who's listening to this episode. But Daniel, I just want to say again, man, thanks for serving the country, but also thanks for being willing to be a guest on the show today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Daniel, thank you once again for sharing your story. And hey, for the listening audience out there, why don't you go ahead and mark your calendars? The book American Mercenary comes out August 20th. Now, if you're part of the Unbeatable Army, we're going to give away a free copy of that book to somebody who's already part of this loyal following of this podcast. If you're not part of the Unbeatable Army, it's totally free. It's totally free, and you can sign up by just going over to unbeatablearmy.com. I want you to ask you, if you're not already doing it, why don't you go ahead and follow us on social media? Because we deliver some content just to try to keep you motivated, just to try to keep you going when life has hit you hard and you need a little pep in your step, or you need a little bit of advice on how do I get up and become unbeatable after this life challenge. So why don't you go ahead and start following us on social media? Just search for @Unbeatable Podcast on most of the social media platforms and you'll find us there. But you're also going to find our fan of the week, Josh Berger. And Josh, you have been selected as the fan of the week because of how active and how engaged you are, but also the motivational content that you're putting out there. And I just want to say, Josh, you're awesome. That's why we're calling you the fan of the week this week. Hey, everybody, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode. And I want to remind you, we've got something really, really big coming up. It's coming up in the future. And if you stay with me for the next couple of weeks, I'll let you know what this big announcement is. So be back with us next week and the week after. Thanks for joining me this time. See you next time. God bless.
These stories of triumph over adversity will help you handle your toughest days in life and become unbeatable.